Welcome to GitLab's monthly release kickoff call for release 14.1. My name is Anup Dawar. I'm the Vice President of Product Management here at GitLab. In just one day, we will be releasing 14.0, a major release. And I'm extremely excited about the amazing capabilities 14.0 has. For instance, merge requests in VS Code, Epic boards, WYSIWYG Markdown editor for wikis, improved container scanning, and new user interfaces. And today we'll talk about 14.1 slated for July 22nd. We plan ambitiously and prioritize velocity over predictability. Therefore, our roadmap is subject to change without notice. As the team goes through what's in store for 14.1, you can follow along with us at about.gitlab.com/direction/kickoff, where you will see listed relevant issues and videos. Please join us to make GitLab better. Everyone can contribute. We also, by the way, did a big refresh to our deployment direction page, so check that out and give us feedback. Today, we'll start with Kenny Johnston, Senior Director of Product for Ops, followed by Josh, Director of Enablement, and then Senior Director of Sec and Dev sections, David DeSanto. Take it away, Kenny.
Awesome. Thank you, Anup. Yeah, tomorrow 14.0 release day. It's also the first day of summer, so looking forward to that. Yeah, as Anup mentioned, in the ops section, we have verify, package, release, configure, and monitor stages, and we've combined release, configure, and monitor into a new deployment direction. So you can find all of that linked in our direction page. I want to start by highlighting a couple of issues that we're working in the ops section. In the pipeline authoring group, where both issues are going to concentrate on this primary use case that we've identified with our users, which is in organizations that have many teams working and building applications together and creating CI/CD pipelines. They want to share their pipeline. They want to share the code that creates the pipeline that they've defined in their GitLab CI YAML. And we have a bunch of ways for you to do that today, but we want to make that easier for you. The first way we're going to make that easier is by allowing you to conditionally include CI YAML templates into your pipeline for your project. So today, this is possible. You can do it. Many users do this by creating dynamic pipelines. So they have a pipeline that kicks off and dynamically creates a new pipeline based on the right templates for their project, their project specific configuration. But we want to make that a lot easier by just allowing you to define specific conditional logic that determines whether or not a template is included in your CI pipeline. This is a highly requested issue with 51 upvotes, and it's something that we're really excited to deliver to improve that experience of managing various components of your pipeline centrally and having them included conditionally. The next thing we're going to be working on is actually a really simple MVC. That's the first step towards us providing a better template experience when editing your pipeline. So if you'll recall, we have presented a vision for what we'd like, where we're headed with our pipeline builder. We have a pipeline editor directly in GitLab, and we want to make that much more intuitive for you to not just write the configuration of your pipeline and share that and collaborate on that with your fellow teammates, but also include these templates that we're talking about, where maybe GitLab provides central templates or your organization provides centralized templates that you want to include and encourage your individual, the other teams that you might be collaborating with to include as well. So in our pursuit of that vision, our first step is going to be adding a button in our pipeline editor that allows you to browse the available templates. So you can view them and copy and paste them and copy and paste the include logic directly into your pipeline definition right here within that editor experience. That as an MVC, we're first going to be using just the standard GitLab repository view of those pipelines, so that when you click on an individual one, you can grab the snippet that says, here's how you include it, and include it into your template. So those are both really great features that we're working on to improve a known user experience that we hope will drive adoption of GitLab CI. The next issue I wanted to highlight is another highly upvoted issue that we've been working on, and that's using a variable inside of another variable. So this is important when you want to add more complex logic to how your pipeline gets executed and what is executed in the specific job that the runner is picking up. What we're going to be doing is allowing you to reference a previously defined variable in a variable that's later defined. So you can see this example, you're referencing variable 1 when defining variable 2. This allows for more complex logic within your within your jobs as defined in your CI YAML. We're really looking forward to adding this in 14.1. The next feature that I wanted to highlight is really about improving the adoption of our dependency proxy. So the dependency proxy, if you're not familiar, allows you to reference external package registries from within GitLab all at one kind of single endpoint, so that your developers don't have to know whether or not the specific package they're looking for is hosted in GitLab or hosted in a central package registry like a NPM or something like that. So what we're doing in what we'll be adding in 14.1 is support for the use of deploy tokens to interact with that proxy. Today, you'd have to use your own personal access token or some bot user in order to interact with the dependency proxy. We're going to make this easier by allowing you to use deploy tokens that are available at the group level when interacting with your dependency proxy. And then the last issues that I want to highlight is our continued improvement in our incident management capabilities, which starting today, we're actually utilizing for all GitLab.com incidents internally, which I'm really excited to hear about. But we're going to be continuing to add on to escalation policies by shipping additional parts of our MVCs in 14.1, as well as allowing you to manually trigger escalation policies. So this would be if you manually created an incident, and instead of wanting to trigger an escalation based on the alerts status, so a specific alert that might have come in, you say, well, I manually created this and I want to immediately page the appropriate escalation policy personnel. You can do that with a quick action, or you can do that manually. I want to show you how you can do that here in this mockup, where you can adjust the escalation policy manually, and that will immediately page them. Another bonus is that an important part of incident management for any team responding to incidents is the ability to look at the history. And now we'll be adding system status that shows when and who was paged at what time. So really great improvements that I'm excited to see in 14.1. I will hand it over to you, Josh.
Thanks, Kenny. Those are super exciting. Can't wait for the new CI builder. Also, the incident management functionality. It's great to see continue to improve. I'll talk, of course, about our enablement functionality, and we'll get things started with adoption through usability. For many of you who have used global search here at GitLab, the search that works through and searches all the content, issues, MRs, and code across the entire product, we are working to improve the group and project dropdowns. If you've used these, you may have found out, or have used other project or group dropdowns across the product, they don't always return what you're looking for. I'm trying to find GitLab-O or GitLab. I'm not getting the results I'm really intending to see. We are working to improve that this release with two features. The first is that we are taking the current suboptimal rankings system and working to adapt a algorithmic score based on a number of factors, which will hopefully provide a more relevant result for your searches. Of course, global search is good at this, but we're also working to also provide a list of recently used projects and groups as well. So before you even search, we will show you what you probably want to try and use anyways. And then when you do search, we'll hopefully be showing you the more relevant one first. And so that way we can all help and improve this part of our product here and help you find ultimately what we're looking for. From there, we can move on to our geo functionality. This is the functionality of GitLab where you can stand up multiple nodes across the world to provide improved performance for your users. Currently, with the web UI, when users are trying to use it, they get a banner across the top that tells them this is actually a read-only site, and that they have to go to the primary to actually kind of comment or make any changes. This is suboptimal for that reason, but also because you have to have different URLs for both. And so users have to be aware of that other URL for the secondary to get that performance boost. We are working to solve both of these problems with this work here to have secondary sites proxy to the primary site. So you can have a common URL where any kind of traffic that hits the secondary, perhaps you were directed there to the secondary because you're closest to it. If you were to look at it, load pages, and then make a change, we'll actually proxy the change transparently to you over to the primary. And so your users of your GitLab instance, and of course your broader users, can simply access transparently the fastest site to them at the time, and they can use it as if they were using the primary. So the whole concept of secondaries just goes away, and your overall experience should just be faster for our users. So super excited about this. And for the improvement to our geo-application functionality. We're also working to simplify the process for promoting a secondary to a primary in the event of some kind of disaster or challenge. Right now, you have to run at least 2 commands and then also edit the configuration on each server. We're working to simplify this process with a single command, promote to primary, that can be run on these nodes that will do the right action based on what type of instance they are, whether database or Italy or Rails. And so simplifying the whole process. And this is to further improve our work towards really making sure the secondary promotion process should be as simple and hopefully as automated as possible. From there, let's work on our SaaS first topics. The first one I want to talk about here is allowing Sidekick to use read replicas. This is a bit technical, but ultimately we have a whole bunch of background jobs that right now all make the database requests against the primary database because we can write to it. But in reality, a lot of these jobs don't actually have to write content. And so they can actually use secondaries. And so this work is going through and finding those Sidekick jobs that actually don't need to write content and having them get directed towards a read-only replica so that you can overall scale the primary higher or just have a smaller scale primary for your instance because we can better distribute the load. From there, we're also looking to upgrade our core Ruby version to 3.0. For those who may not be aware, the goal the Ruby team set back in 2.0 was to be 3 times faster in 3.0. And so we'd like to upgrade to 3.0 to take advantage of those performance improvements and other features as well. Right now we're on 2.7, and so there's a fair bit of work to make sure our gems are all updated, to make sure our code is all compliant and works with Ruby 3.0. And so we're working towards that so we can upgrade to 3.0 and then allow all of our users to benefit from the performance improvements contained therein. So very exciting work that's just getting underway. Continuing on the theme of performance and scalability, we have our primary key reindexing process. So some of our larger tables like C artifacts and webhooks currently have a relatively small primary key size, and the larger instances that have been around for longer are in danger of actually running into this and running out of index space. So we are going through all of our tables and converting them over to a much larger index size so they can continue to grow for years and years and years to come without any problems. We are completing this work in 14.1, as you can see here, with a large number of tables all being migrated. This was a great effort from the team and has completed faster than we expected it to, and well before any instances actually had this problem. Continuing on database scalability, we also have our sharding group, which is looking at taking the main GitLab database and taking parts of it and moving them over to separate logical databases. This will be largely transparent for all of our self-managed users. However, it'll provide the scalability for the very, very large instances should they need it to run these on separate instances or separate database hardware. And so what we're doing here is we've gone through, we've established our design, and we'll be taking the most commonly or the largest portion of our database, which is our CI tables, and moving them into that separate logical database. You can see it's 35% of our database size, but 50% of our writes. And so by moving this out, we can give both of these, for the instances that need it, a lot more headroom to grow. From there, we're also working to implement partitioning and ultimately pruning for tables that have a retention policy or could have one applied. If I go back here to the overall size, you can see that webhook logs is actually by itself the next largest database portion of our database next to CI. And so we're going to be going through this and actually implementing time-based partitioning and ultimately retention policies so we can drop this content very easily, because for a lot of our self-managed customers, this table can be the biggest table in the overall database because it's containing so many webhook logs from a long time ago. We can automate this, drop those content pretty safely, and this will save DB admins on our self-managed instances from having to go in and drop this content manually every 6 months after it gets too big. So this is a great improvement for performance as well as overall quality of life. And finally, let's get on to the operator and new markets. We're continuing to work towards our GA release of our operator, and we will be going through and addressing a couple last items here to improve the installation experience, solving things like SSH support and overall preparation for going GA. We're very close to the end of the line here. If you're interested in testing our beta release, originally released in 13.11, please reach out to the team and let us know. We'd love to talk to you. If not, we'll see you in GA as well. Thank you, and I'll hand it over to David to take us through Dev and Sec.
Thanks, Josh. And let me get my screen shared here. Okay, so to dive in here, let's start off with Dev. The create stage first, they're focused on two items, usability through adoption, as well as the scalability and performance. So the first item is focused on the scalability and performance, and this is us rolling out a beta version of our GitLab SSHD daemon. This will be replacing the traditional open SSH daemon that we've been using. The main reason for this is to give us better scalability, as well as better stability for GitLab.com. As Josh mentioned, for the items that Enablement's working on, this will also become available for self-managed instances as well. So our goal is to move this to beta in 14.1. Next, for the editor team, they're focused on adoption to usability. The first thing is introducing a Markdown Preview as part of the source editor. Kind of show you what that looks like. Great video attached to the Epic, so if you wanted to see it, you can, but you can see here in the demo, they right-clicked and it brought in a preview view right alongside the editor. So a really great way to be able to see the changes you're making in real time and know that you're applying the styles that you would like. And then finally, for the editor team, they're focused on supporting inserting images into the content editor. This will bring us in line with the full Common Mark spec. More details, of course, are here on the issue if you'd like to read more about it. And then finally, for the Gitaly team, they're focused on, again, adoption to usability as well as scalability. We've been talking about the rollout of repository level incremental backups over the last couple of kickoff calls. This is coming to a point where it'll now be available. To kind of highlight it for you, the goal here is to address the common issue with Git. Git does not have a concept of incremental backups. This is leveraging Gitaly to be able to begin to offer that so backups can run faster and also require less load. I would also like to highlight that this is our incremental approach to incremental backups, and that's why we'll probably continue to tell you about it over the next couple of kickoffs. And then finally, this kind of builds off something Josh was talking about with regards to Geo. For Gitaly, we're working on, I'll call it lazily selecting the primary. Today, if you fail over to your secondary, you can now begin to continue to do your reads. The effort of switching back over to the primary requires bringing everything back up to speed with writes. This could have a lot of jarring back and forth depending on the stability of your environment. What this is going to allow us to do is to switch back to the primary for writes when writes start to happen into the repository. Again, this is going to make a huge performance improvement as well as make Gitaly a lot easier to adopt. For the planned stage, again, they're working a lot of the infra dev and scalability items. The one item to highlight that is new is supporting multiple iteration cadences within a milestone. Today, if you have a team who is using, multiple teams are using the same project, this can be a problem. We try to do that today, separating it by milestone. However, this is going to allow multiple teams to have their own iteration cadences within that milestone. This is going to allow a lot of the automated value customers find with our planning, including auto generation of things like release notes based off the closed up items. This will then be able to support that as well. And to wrap up the dev section with the manage stage, we talked a lot about our compliance and our focus on improving security and compliance. A part of this is the push for new event types as part of our effort this quarter. Here, the first one you're seeing is generating an audit event when creating or deleting SSH keys or GPG keys via our API. This will now show up in that traditional audit events view when the API is being used for these actions. Next, the ability to also generate an audit event when compliance frameworks are changed on the project. It's a great way to catch whether they were done on purpose or they were done accidental, and be able to have that traceability, understand why was, say, the project changed from PCI to SOX or whatever that change was on the compliance framework. And then finally, working on generating audit event when the new user is added as an instance admin. This will be a great addition for self-managed users wanting to track auditing of accounts as well. That wraps up the dev section. A lot less than what we normally touch on. The team is very actively working on the scalability and infra items as well. Over to the sec section. To start us off with static analysis, they're working on the improving of the vulnerability tracking. We've been calling this on these calls vulnerability fingerprinting, as well as Tagger, which is the internal code name. With it coming out, we're going to be referring to it as that vulnerability tracking. The focus will be attaching it to additional scanners The initial effort was focused around SEMGRAPH and SEMGRAPH coming out in 14.0. But as we move forward with our SEMGRAPH adoption, as well as keep updating our existing scanners, we'll be attaching our new vulnerability tracking to that. The dynamic analysis team has a lot of really great updates. They've been heads down working on our new browser-focused crawler to allow us to support single-page apps. That's coming out in beta in 13.12, so it's out today. So now they're working on UI configuration. This looks a lot like what you've been seeing for on-demand scanning, the ability to create scanner profiles and site profiles. But this also allows you now to attach those to your pipeline runs. So now instead of having to have independent files that you're trying to track for all this, you can actually build and save those configurations as part of your UI configuration experience. You can see all of that is in line here, allowing you to save it, as well as select an existing profile if you have that today. Also, another big exciting item, last year, probably about 13 months ago, we announced we had acquired Peach Tech as part of our fuzzing acquisitions. One of the products that Peach had was API Security Scanner. It did both API fuzzing as well as DAST API functionality. With 14.1, we are rolling out the deprecation of ZAP for DAST API, and we'll be using the Peach scanner that we acquired. This is a huge improvement, not only just on the usability, but on the findings results. We are finding that we'll have substantially less false positives now that we'll be using the DAST API engine component from the Peach acquisition. And then to finish up with our Threat Insights team, we've been talking about the ability to create vulnerability records. A lot of that's been around the API. With 14.1, we'll begin the rollout of doing this within the UI. And so here you can see on the screen, if you're on the vulnerability report, there's a little button at the top that says create finding. When you do that, same fields that we're populating today automatically are going to be available to you, including the name, the description, the severity, what the stated is, and then of course any evidence you have, whether that's packet captures, log files, and so forth. And now that vulnerability will look like any other vulnerability that's coming out of our pipeline scans or on-demand scans. This would be big for you if you're using bug bounty programs. And you want to be able to track those as part of your single view into all of your security risk. Also, we've talked about how to bulk update vulnerabilities in previous kickoff calls. We're now extending that to include the ability to have a reason for that change. So after you check the items, not only can you set what the status is, whether it's confirmed, resolved, so forth, you can also include a status for that. That'll be written to the audit event for that vulnerability. So you'll also have that traceability there as well. And then finally, I probably should have told you all these secure ones were focused on adoption through usability and AST leadership, which is a theme that both manage and secure support. This final one's focused on the performance and scalability. This you'll not necessarily see in the UI. However, hopefully you will feel the impact of it once it's rolled out. The team is focused on moving over the pipeline security report over to use GraphQL, which will add the performance you now see when we moved over the vulnerability report and security dashboards over. To wrap us up, before I hand it back to MC and Noop, for the protect stage, they are focused on two things that I think are very exciting. In 14.0, which comes out tomorrow, our new default container scanner will be Trivy. We did that so we can now also support vulnerability scanning of running containers inside your Kubernetes environment. And so here, this will be the first step of that, which is the ability just to say run the scan. Over the following milestones, we'll be adding things such as scheduling them, as well as fetching additional details that you would want as part of that scan. Also, the team is beginning to add the ability to edit scan execution policies as part of our security orchestration category. We initially talked about this being how you set your policies for production. This is beginning to now not just expose DAST, but expose other scanners via the YAML configuration. So here's a screenshot. If you're inside of the policy editor, you can select your scan execution policy. And here's an example of DAST being in there. So you can now write that all in there, save that. That now becomes an immutable configuration. So if someone decides that they want to remove a part of the GitLab CI YAML file and disable a certain type of scan, this is going to be automatically appending that scan back into it. It's a great component for not only just adoption of our product, but also giving you the compliance and the auditability you need when you're releasing software in different regulated industries. So with that, that's all the updates from Sec as well as from Dev. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Anoop.
Thank you, David. What an amazing update. 14.0 is a major release, but 14.1 is also packed with unbelievable goodness. I heard nested variables, escalation policies for incident management, including manual triggers, simplifying geo with proxy URLs and single command promotions. That's great for admins. Improving SaaS performance by reading from secondaries and upgrade to Ruby 3.0. That will be amazing. I can't wait for the GA release of the GitLab operator for OpenShift. I love the real-time Markdown preview for the source editor. That's super exciting. Faster backups with repo-level incremental capabilities, better performance with redirect to primary on write for a repo, better compliance with new audit events for security keys, immutable security scan execution pipelines, improved tracking accuracy for SAST, unbelievable content. This is going to be a great release. We'll see you again next month. Bye.